Welcome to the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John Tulak.
Welcome to another edition of Professionals of the Inland Empire. I'm John Tulak, international business attorney located in Claremont, and it's really my privilege to interview really smart, interesting professionals in the Inland Empire, hence the term PI, get it? And today I have two really special guests, two really knowledgeable and smart, intelligent women who can tell you something about how to be a better business person, each in their own unique, special way. And that's the whole idea of this podcast, is to showcase our really great talent that we have right here in the Inland Empire, ready to serve your business needs. And in so doing, as you get better, so does the Inland Empire as a whole. This is contributing to the economic health and well-being of the Inland Empire if we're all doing better. A rising tide raises all boats. So I am very happy to welcome you. Welcome today, Patty Cotton and Andrea Davis. They are each coaches. They are each coaches that focus on business people, but they do it in their own unique way. So I'm going to let them explain the differences. So Patty, let's start with you. Give us a little backstory and what you do and how you do it.
Sure. Okay, so I work with talented CEOs and other senior business leaders and their teams to re-energize them. There's a lot of burnout, there's a lot of quiet quitting, there's a lot of underperformance. And so I work with them specifically to help get them back on track so that they can accomplish those big goals that they've set for themselves. Yeah.
Okay. So I think the term that you use to describe your particular kind of coaching is you're an executive coach and you focus on one-on-one
I
sessions.
focus on one-on-one and teams, although I do larger scope projects for to effectuate big change. So that means coaching the top and then training the middle and then disseminating the training throughout. But my sweet spot is really working with that senior leader and perhaps his or her executive team. But right, you're right. I am an executive coach. And the difference between that, a lot of people will call me a business coach, which I would love to be also, but I'm not. An executive coach works with senior leaders on the person behind the position, whereas a business coach usually would typically focus on helping business owners and entrepreneurs with operational, financial, and strategic aspects of their business. I help them take the plan to action in a way that grows them into a larger version of themselves, that makes it easier, that really expands their capacity to be able to do it well. So that's strategic thinking, emotional intelligence, leadership development, and navigating those complex interpersonal or organizational dynamics. A lot of words there, John.
Those were good words.
More
I
than you
get
more
it.
than you asked for. Yeah.
Oh, no, no, no. This is not be careful what you ask for because you might get it. It's the whole idea. So, Andrea, let's turn to you and tell us your particular niche and the focus that you bring to how you do coaching.
Well, thanks, John. And I'd say Patty and I are sort of two sides of the same coin with our focus. So I focus on business coaching, but I would say, you can't separate the person from what they're working on with their team or their organization. So there is a fair amount of overlap, I guess, but in a good, in a good, positive, healthy way. So I work with entrepreneurs and their leadership teams primarily to help them get whatever it is they really want from their business. So Patty, you said it well. I mean, oftentimes, whether it's an executive or a business owner, I mean, they're burnt out, they're stressed out, they've hit a ceiling, what personally, professionally, maybe as a team. And so I come in and help those teams break through that ceiling, become a better version of themselves from a team perspective and a company perspective. And I happen to do that utilizing a proven process, operational model called EOS, the Entrepreneurial Operating System. So think of it as kind of a set of tools that help entrepreneurs and their teams be able to advance their company forward, however they define that. I'm not there to define that for them. I'm helping them define that. But I think, as Patty said, that you can't separate the person from that. So there are times that, part of the work that I'm doing kind of coming alongside them is I'm having conversations with the business owner one-on-one and helping them just understand, what is it that might be holding them back or preventing them from being able really to lead their team where they want to go. But I have a number of clients who those entrepreneurs, those leaders also have an executive coach. So I'm kind of in the camp of like, I think the more the merrier, and we need great people around us who can help us be better versions of ourselves. So it's great because it's not one or the other in my mind.
And I agree, if I can jump in, John, before you ask
Sure.
your next question, because what I love to do most is to work with a professional like a sister or brother professional like Andrea, because the EOS system, for example, is just phenomenal. And it's proven, it's measurable, it's just all of those things that you want it to be. Because if you're working on the leader by him or herself without a plan, they're not going to go anywhere. And so, and a lot of times they have very poor plans. And so it's a lot of fun to partner up with someone like Andrea to be able to do the work.
And
And
one of the first questions I will ask somebody is, are you working with a coach? Have you worked with a coach before?
Yeah.
Because again, I think most executives, most leaders need that support.
I would think at the end of the day, it's like a coach in sports, right? You can teach some skills, you can give folks feedback, but the person has to do the work. The one you're coaching is the one that's really tasked with doing the work to get better.
100%.
So Andrea, you have an entrepreneurial background, and that's what I guess ultimately led you into coaching in a different way from what you started with which was leadership training, right?
It,
Started for that.
yes. And so it's, yeah, kind of an interesting background. I co-founded a leadership development and coaching company. So in my background, we trained coaches. We had a number of coaches on our team who coached executives and leaders to help them grow. So I did that for about 20 years before exiting that business. And I knew I wanted to continue to work with leaders. And honestly, one day I was reading the book Traction by Gino Wickman. He was the founder of EOS. And it just kind of all came together for me. I mean, I would like to say it's like magic, but it literally kind of jumped out of the book. And I thought, what a wonderful way to combine all these things that I've done, from being an entrepreneur to having a background in leadership and coaching, and being able to help other entrepreneurs work through the burnout, work through the stress, find whatever it was they wanted from their business. So I get to do a little bit of all of those things that I did in my past.
And by the way, Traction's a great book. You brought that to my attention, and I promptly went out and got it and read it, and I thought it was
Oh,
very, very good.
good.
So,
Really
so
makes you think about all the things you've done right, and maybe some of the things you could do better.
right. But again, if you're a lifelong learner, as I profess to be, I'm not happy. I'm not learning and keeping up with things. And knowledge is power, in my view.
Mhm.
So we have to keep up, and then we have to follow where our curiosity leads us. And there are people who have designed systems and approaches that are worth studying. And traction is one of those. So Patty, you got a start early on in diplomacy, which I thought was really quite fascinating. And then how did that then lead to what you do as a coach?
Sure. And that was a long time ago, John. So I kicked off my early adulthood in the diplomacy for the Swiss government with my husband, and we were stationed at some pretty exciting places, London, the UN, and so forth. And so it really gave me a wonderful taste for different cultures. I lived in Switzerland for 10 years. And so that gave me a very rich exposure to various cultures and leadership within that arena and how people worked together to make big things happen. But then when I moved back to the States, I got into healthcare. And I eventually headed up the development for the 5 hospitals at Loma Linda system, and I was known for actionable strategic planning and building teams and teaching them how to actually do it so they could do it well. And at a certain moment, John, even though I really appreciate my background there, um, I wanted more. I decided that I wanted to do this for other people. And so I went back to school, got my formal education in executive coaching and team coaching, and then jumped out and started to help people that way. So I came through the diplomacy, sort of the corporate route. Yeah.
And you also have gotten training as a mediator. Did that come before or after the coaching?
That came after the coaching, John. I actually, yes, because I found that a lot of teams are, and Andrew will contest to this as well, they don't play well together. They don't always play well together. And so I felt that transformational conflict resolution, where you have high stakes relationships, but you don't want to cut the baby in half, you actually want to bring them together, was where I wanted to play to sort of put put more in my toolkit. And so I studied with a super wonderful leader in that arena. Um, and then I went into mediation for the state of California. I just felt that in my work with teams, that was really helpful. So yeah, yeah.
As
And
one
I enjoyed it.
satisfying thing I've done in my career is served as a mediator for the
Yes.
LA
Yes.
County court system for a lot of years and mediated a lot of cases. And it was pro bono. It was free. But then sometimes people come back and they would hire me as a mediator, or I picked up a couple of corporate clients that way. So
There
it
you
was
go.
really
But so rewarding,
something
as you
great.
say,
Yeah.
when you have this rift, this rupture, and you're able to repair that and help them to go on and do great things together. It's just such a wonderful feeling.
So you find, Andrew, that you're sometimes the mediator as well when you're dealing with a
Not
team.
officially trained as Patty is, but oh yeah, absolutely. It is a lot about, and I love the, Patty, your background in diplomacy, because so much of that, it is about just the trying to understand other perspectives and not coming at it from a one is right and one is wrong, but let's try to really understand each other better, build relationships, build bridges. And I can't imagine like how that so much helps your clients.
Mm. It was certainly an education in itself, Andrea. It was. Yeah. So yeah.
One of the things that I really enjoyed in my life was coaching girls softball, which I did for 9 years
Ah, lovely.
as the manager. So I was the head coach, and I taught my teams how to win.
Hmm.
You can teach the skills and you can create a mindset of team, but it's up to the girls to play well, and they play better when they're motivated to win, and they play well when they know that they are a team. And the most enjoyable part was actually after the game, the girls would sit in a circle and they had to go over the game with each other. The coaches didn't say anything. We listened to them, what they did well, what they didn't do well. They would assign laps to a team member who might have missed signs or didn't carry out a sign because they didn't want to, kind of thing. They knew, and so that was their time. It was just enjoyable because that's how you saw them grow. And
Mm.
that to me was so satisfying. It seems to me that that's one of the interesting thing about being a coach. How do you know when they've really kind of graduated, they've stepped it up, they've gotten to the next level, and then what do you do next for them? Andrea, let's go back to you on that. What do you
Oh,
do?
yeah, great question. Well, and I don't, have they graduated, or is it we're all on a journey? And so maybe the question is, are they at a place in their journey where they feel like, hey, we're going to sort of take this and run with it. And we may get to another point where we would like some support again from somebody else, another coach, somebody who can help them. But I think it's, when it's not when things are perfect, because my experience is, and I work more with teams, no team is ever perfect. Like perfection is not the goal. It's about, can we be open and honest with each other? Can we be vulnerable? Am I okay with telling my teammates that I'm struggling? I need help. Something's not right. So they're not coming at it from a place of fear, but they really do have that trust and faith in their team members that they have their back. They'll be there to help them. When it gets to that point and they're executing on their plan, from my perspective, that's when I would say, like, I think you've kind of like take it and run with it. If you still would like to have me around to be a cheerleader and to ask tough questions at times, great. But as a coach, you kind of know when they have, and they kind of know. I don't know, Patty, if that's your experience, but that's my
Andrea,
experience. It's like we all sort of feel it when it's there.
Okay.
You're right. Absolutely. I loved how you described that. And I want to second what Andrea said in that it isn't, I'm not sure we ever really get there. I think we're always becoming, but we've moved them farther up the path. And, the first and elementary thing that I think both of us would say is, what's the goal here? Where do you want to be along the path? And then we help them to move there, that part of the journey. And so you're right, our job frankly is to work ourselves out of a job. It
So
really is.
Yep.
if you're Mama and Papa Eagle, like up in Fawnskin, you know you're done when the eagle flies the coop, right?
There you
Exactly.
go. Yeah. Yeah.
And you're happy for them.
And you're happy
for
for
them.
them. It
Yeah.
just took place. So what I hear you both saying is that there's a natural rhythm to this and kind of a natural ending. But that rhythm and the pace and the ending is probably different for everybody that you work with. Would that be fair to say?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And I will, from working with teams, one of the interesting things, challenging things is teams also change. I mean, I work with a lot of leadership teams where 6 months later, two team members have changed, and now you're kind of taking a step back to really rebuild the level of trust and familiarity, and how the team dynamic, improving team dynamic. So it's when you're working in a team environment, that growth can kind of go forward and then take a little bit of a step back, and then it goes forward again. And so it's just this ever evolving dance a little bit. But we think about it in terms of people don't grow just in a kind of a straight line there. They go through phases of growth and transformation, and then they get stuck again and have to figure out, how do I work through that so I can reach that next level of evolution? Again, however they define that. And that's where coaching can help, because you can help people by helping them build the skill sets, the mindsets, the tools to be able to, hey, when I get stuck again, I now have more things that I can lean into to help me push past that. And so at least it helps them kind of accelerate as they face challenges in the future.
I think that's beautifully said, Andrea. I mean, growth is messy. It is never linear, as you say. And if you grow in one area, you kind of look over here and go, oh, oops, this part needs to come up now, and this part needs to come up. And so it's kind of like, this sounds terrible, roiling lava. Actually, it's just sort of, let's say waves coming in on the beach, maybe. Maybe
I
that's a
like the
better
lava.
analogy.
I
But
like
it
the
really
lava.
is true.
She's
You'll grow
channeling
in one
Tony
area.
Robbins right now.
There you go.
Walk on those hot coals.
That's right. But you look around, to Andrea's point, when they have grown in an area, suddenly you are able to see and make meaning of a larger landscape and more complexity. And so because you can not only see the pieces coming at you, but make meaning of them and address them and meet them head on, you have expanded your capacity not only to see the larger landscape, but to manage it. Now, that landscape keeps expanding. Change is constant now. And the complexity just grows exponentially. And so I'm sure it's true. I imagine it's true for you too, Andrea, that as you say, they might call you 6 months or a year or two from there and say, whoops, we need you again. We've grown so much, but here we are now. We've grown, and so as our clients evolve, they might be calling us back from time to time to take them to a next level or a next leg in that journey on that path.
Absolutely.
I think this kind of brings it to something that has always frustrated me as a lawyer. And as a transactional lawyer, and actually one who did a lot of litigation, so you're dealing with a mess, and with on one side or the other, you got to solve that mess, and you're doing it the hard way when that's how you get brought into it. But I've always said, there's a right way and a wrong way. There's oftentimes multiple right ways and multiple wrong ways. But the ideal referral to me as a transactional attorney is let's do it right from the very beginning. Let's plan this. Let's prepare. Let's negotiate. Let's draft. Let's execute, and do this well. But the typical referral is somebody has gotten themselves in trouble and now needs to get out of it. So if you had your way, what's the message to get across that it's better to have the coach early and grow as opposed to get the coach and dig out from something? How do you do that, Patty?
So I will often get calls from leaders who are savvy enough to know that they're about ready to undertake something and they want to do it right the first time. And so, part of the calls that I receive are, oh my goodness, we're in trouble. And part of them are, we're about ready to expand our our footprint. We're about ready to, go into another country. We're about ready to do something. And so I love that, because rather than having them dig themselves into a hole and trying to come out, and that takes a lot of not only time and energy, but lost market share and a lot of repercussions from that I won't go into now. But organizationally, they can take a tremendous hit, and it can take years or maybe never to come back from. But if they preempt that with thinking, you know what, I want to measure twice and cut once. I want to do it right the first time. Those are really the exciting engagements to grow along with the leader as they expand their territory, as they expand what they're willing to do. There are a growing number of leaders out there who know to do that, and that's really reassuring.
Well, you're probably finding this as well, that organizations, especially larger organizations, when they promote executives to more of a senior executive position, somebody's taking on a
Yes,
new team. I mean, the right time to do coaching is day one, before they
it's
even,
true. It's true.
as soon as they've got that promotion, or they're coming in new to an organization, and having
Yeah,
a coach alongside them so they don't have to unravel the first 6 or 12 months of missteps that they make in that organization. Can be
absolutely.
tremendously valuable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So how do you each get the buy-in that you need from your executives to your process? To me, because clearly it requires commitment to a process, a commitment to a way of doing things. You each have a way of doing things, and you're telling the execs this process, if you follow it and we work together, is going to lead to the desired result. So how do you assure their buy-in to following process? Part of that's accountability, right? Part of it's commitment, right? How does that work?
That's a great question. I guess
Yeah.
I'll,
I
um,
wasn't on the list
yeah,
of
I'll
prompts,
give
but
you,
it occurs to me
yeah,
that this
no,
is kind of key to what you do.
Yeah. Yeah.
it is. I guess I'll speak from, yeah, just kind of my experience with clients. And maybe the first thing I would say is, if I have to push too hard, that's not a great fit. That's not a great client. Like, my job is not to try to convince somebody to do something. It's, they have to want it more than I do. I can't
Mhm.
want it more for them than they do.
Yeah.
And so when when I'm first working with a prospective client, it's really understanding, where are they today? What do they want? What's that gap? And are they willing to do the work to get there? I walk them through, here's what that is going to look like. Here's what that's going to mean. Here's what it doesn't mean. Here's the role you'll have to play in that. For EOS clients, it may mean that that business owner has to make changes to his or her leadership team. They may have to make some tough people decisions to get the company in a place where they want to get it to. And so I try to give them that realistic preview so that they have some time to process, like, okay, here's what it is likely going to mean. And then again, they have to want something in the future more than they have to want to keep it as the status quo. I don't know if that answers the question, but
I second the motion. I do. We cannot, you said it so well. They have to want it more than we do. And they have to understand that change doesn't come overnight. I'm not in the business
Yeah.
either of convincing someone that they need to do something. They usually call when they're desperate or they know they need to do something. But we do talk about, what would happen if you didn't do this? What would the benefits be? Organizationally, team-wise, relationally, and to you proper. What's the ROI here and what's the COI, the cost of inaction? And so, although that isn't a conversation meant to convince, I just love to understand. And I love to forge that common understanding as we're talking about what their vision is, what they're experiencing, and what they'd like to experience instead. But definitely to Andrea's point, they have to be coachable. They have to be willing to listen, to consider different perspectives, and they have to consider that maybe they're not right all the time. There may be a different way. There may be a better way, and so uh, I look for those traits in a discovery conversation, and we talk frankly about it, as I'm sure, Andrea, you probably do as well.
It
Well,
better
and I
not
work,
keep someone on, right, than to have to fire them in midstream
yeah,
as you're
nobody wants to
like a
do
dog
that.
flunking obedience school. To just no, go home.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking this goes back a few years, but there was an Australian company that decided that they were not getting very good efficiency out of their factory, and they hired an American efficiency expert. Let's bring in a dose of American style business to our company. So this guy flies all the way over and walking the floor and getting the lay of the land and so on. It gets introduced to the union shop steward and unions are big in Australia. And this guy already knows what this guy is, the expert's there for. And the union steward doesn't shake his hand. He just, pow, slugs him.
Oh my word. Oh my
Which,
word.
which was the end of the assignment.
Yes.
The efficiency expert from the United States went home. So yeah, say to the point, there are some folks that are just not coachable.
That goes in your book, John.
Maybe someday. So
And
part
note to
thought.
self, I'm never going to position myself as an efficiency expert going into.
There you go.
I think you're kind of set up for some
I
resistance
met
for out of
another
the
one
gate.
here in the United States. He was from Louisiana, and he actually wrote a book on it. But he seemed to be universally disliked wherever he went.
Mm, yeah,
Maybe
yeah.
it's just the field. Who knows? So last thought. The ideal client, the ideal dream assignment. What would that be? What does that look like?
Andrea?
Well, for me and specifically for EOS clients, it's again entrepreneurs. So think companies that might have anywhere from 10 to 250 employees. I know that's a broad range, but they're typically companies that have some structure in place, but probably not all the infrastructure that they need to get them from point A to point B. A business owner who wants something else for the business. So it could be an owner who is thinking 5 or 10 years out, hey, at some point I want to monetize this business. I want a successful exit, and I know that to do that, the business has to be able to run without me. And how do I get that there? And so oftentimes those are ideal clients, or again, a client where the leadership team wants to grow. They just know that it's going to mean a lot of decisions along the way, and something they're going to have to tighten things up to be able to get there. And so I kind of, to Patty's point, they have to want something. I'm not convincing them, but they've got to want to go to another place and want somebody to help them there on that journey.
All right.
Yeah. And I think
Okay.
for me, usually when CEOs call me, they will say, I'm about ready to undertake something, or we're in transition, or we're taking a look at this, we're stuck, and we've got these great plans and everything, but we're just not playing well together. Or my team is underperforming, or we need more alignment, was my latest client. If my team would just, get aligned. Well, often we find that when the team needs alignment, it's because the leader doesn't know how to lead them to align them. So, um, so any sort of transition or state where they're at an impasse and they need to move forward, or they just simply want to grow and they want to do it in an easier, more enjoyable way. That's when they call me.
I like that. You want to be doing business in an enjoyable way,
You
whatever your business might be.
you
That's
do.
that's a
You should
great.
be able to. We
You
should
should
all
be
be able
able to.
to.
Yeah. Well,
We
that's
all
a really
deserve
good
that.
parting line for today. I want to thank our guests, Patty Cotton and Andrea Davis, for what I think are some really great insights. And for those of you who are business folk out there listening in, think long and hard about where your business or where you personally would benefit by having a coach in your life. So that's it for this week. Our next edition of Professional at the Inland Empire will be posted every Thursday. So this one will be posted on the Thursday, and that's when you're all going to see it. And we'll be back next week with another episode. And if you are a professional and you think you've got what it takes to be a member of Provisors, which is a really good networking group by invitation only, the contact information's at the end of this podcast. So long for now. We'll see you next week.
Thanks for watching or listening to, depending on the case, the Professionals of the Inland Empire show with your host, John W. Tulak. If you have a suggestion for a guest, email him at jwtulac, that's JWTULAC, @gmail.com. jwtulac @gmail.com.